Well, we can now reveal something extraordinary, something exclusive that has not been revealed anywhere else about the death threats against Dr. Suzanne Humphries, who, of course, is the doctor and scientist or scientifically trained medical doctor who has been speaking out about the dangers of vaccines. Now, what's new, what you haven't heard before, was just revealed in a live interview. She joined me in studio for an interview on my show, Counterthink, which is filmed at the InfoWars studios, and it's part of the InfoWars content network. The show is broadcast each Sunday at Infowars.com, Sunday at 6 p.m. Now, Dr. Humphries revealed something astonishing, and this was contained in the episode that just aired on June 3rd. She revealed that the FBI tried to blame her for her own death threats, and the Austin police appear to have been also working in perhaps collusion with the FBI to lie to Dr. Humphries about how case numbers work in order to try to blame her and perhaps indict her for the death threats that were leveled against her. Now, just to back up here, there were serious death threats leveled against Dr. Humphries in January of this year. And we covered that story at naturalnews.com. And these were very graphic, vile death threats, by the way. And they described how this person wanted to shoot her in the chest and see her bleeding out on the ground. And they sent her a photo of, it was a photo of her photo with her eyes gouged out and semen sprayed across the photo. I mean, you talk about sickening stuff. This is obviously a very mentally deranged individual who did this stuff. And I haven't even gone to all the other details. You know, they threatened to carry out a mass shooting and worse. And she went to the police and the FBI with this. She filed the report with the FBI. So the FBI decided that they wanted to take an interest in this case, and they sent a couple of agents to interview Dr. Humphries, which very quickly turned into almost what she described as an interrogation, like they were trying to interrogate her. And this all surrounded a third letter that was sent to her. This is all revealed on the Counterthink show, by the way. You see, the first two letters were threat letters, but the third letter, which had not been revealed before, was an apology letter. And the letter claimed that the person who had been issuing all these threats was themselves autistic. And it was a guy who claimed that he had been abused as a child and he wanted her to back off and, stand down on all this. And then he faxed a copy of this letter using an anonymous fax service to the Austin PD. And at the top of the letter, he included a reference to the case number of this case with the Austin PD. Now, this case number is critical to understand because we're all told by the FBI and the Austin police that this case number is super, super secret and that nobody can get this case number. That the only person who knows the case number would be Suzanne Humphries and, of course, the police and the FBI, but no member of the public would ever have access to this case number. That's what we're told. And thus, when this fax showed up at the Austin Police Department, and it claimed, it said, it was an apology letter, and said, we're going to back down, we're sorry, or he's sorry, whoever he is, and he had the case numbers at the top of that fax, then the Austin PD and the FBI immediately began to point their fingers at the victim, Dr. Suzanne Humphries. And they began to think that she had done this to herself, or at least they wanted her to believe that, because they told her that nobody can get these case numbers. So Dr. Humphries relayed this information to me. And me being an investigative journalist, I said, well, let's find out if we can get the case numbers as journalists. So I assigned one of my journalists who writes for science.news to contact the Austin PD from science.news and say, hey, we're covering this case of Dr. Suzanne Humphries, who's been death threatened, and we'd like to know the case number. And within a couple of days, we receive an email back from the Austin PD with the name of the sergeant and the badge number of the sergeant and the IP address in the headers and everything that says, okay, here you go. Here's the case number. They gave us the case number. Even though the Austin PD and the FBI were saying that this could never happen. There's no way you could get the case number. Turns out you can get the case number just by asking for it. Yeah, so much for their theories, huh? All you got to do is ask for it. All you got to do, apparently, is say you're a journalist, which we are. We weren't lying. We really are investigating this story. And they gave us the case number immediately. No questions asked. So apparently, this whole thing about, oh, nobody can get case numbers, and the apology letter containing the case numbers supposedly shows that Suzanne Humphries was doing this to herself. That's all BS. The FBI is busted. The Austin PD is busted. We busted them using just simple journalism. Sent them an email, requested a case number, they gave us the case number. So their little conspiracy theory is blown. And now, as you'll hear if you listen to this interview, by the way, which you got to hear because it's really compelling. It's eye-opening at many, many levels. You'll learn that Dr. Humphries was astonished that she had gone to the FBI and the police for help, and they had done this to her. And they weren't looking for the actual perpetrators of this death threat. They weren't looking for the crime. And that teaches us something about the way law enforcement works today. And there's nothing against individual cops or even individual FBI agents who are trying to do their job. I've always been a supporter of law enforcement. I was a supporter of the FBI until recently when this whole James Comey crap came out, and he's just discredited the entire organization. You can't trust the FBI anymore. And Robert Mueller too. I mean, what a traitor. That guy covered up for Hillary Clinton and Uranium One, and he used to run the FBI too. You talk about a couple of treasonous traitors. Jeez. But I'm not anti, cop or anti-law enforcement by any means. In fact, I've done a tremendous amount of volunteer work, and I was on the board of directors of a nonprofit for police officers. I've raised money, I've donated money, I've done lots of things for police officers over the years. And I support local police, by the way. But what we're learning from this case is that either the Austin PD has no freaking clue what they're talking about, i.e. they're incompetent, or they're lying and actively working against the victim of this crime to try to get this person blamed, Dr. Humphries, to try to have her blamed for the crime, to victimize her twice. Not only is she victimized once by being death threatened, and then she's victimized again by being perhaps prosecuted by the Austin Police Department. I mean, it didn't come to that, but that's where it was headed until, frankly, my organization got involved as independent journalism and got the case numbers. Thank God that we were able to do that, because I would hate to think what would happen if the lies from the police and the lies from the FBI continued, that an innocent woman would have gone to jail. And it makes me wonder how many innocent people have gone to jail all across this country, and people who aren't, white female doctors. What about a street-talking young black man who has no platform, who has no studio, who doesn't have a big publishing operation? How's he going to defend himself if he gets falsely accused? And then it turns out, excuse me, these police labs that are used all across the country, these forensic labs, they're committing fraud all the time. And this was true in Austin as well. I think it was a federal judge, it might have been a state Texas judge, but a court judge shut down the Austin Police Laboratory, it was a couple of years ago, shut it down because they said there's so much fraud taking place in this lab. They found out that some employees that were in there claiming to be lab technicians had no ability to run lab instruments and had faked their resumes and weren't who they claimed to be in terms of professional experience, and that they weren't even running the tests. They were just taking the cocaine samples from the cops as part of a criminal investigation, and then they were turning around and they were just saying, yeah, it tests positive for cocaine. And then based on that, people were being convicted. Innocent people were being convicted. I mean, think about how atrocious that is, that not only are these police departments lying to you and the FBI lying to you, but then they can take a bag of baking soda out of your pantry and send it to this lab, this police lab in a city like Austin, Texas. And that lab can say, yeah, it's cocaine, when it's actually baking soda or baby powder or salt or something else. They can say, no, it's cocaine, you're guilty. And you're like, what? There's no cocaine here. This is just baking soda. What are you talking about? Oh, well, the lab said it's cocaine. The lab, it's official. And the cops said it's cocaine. The cops testifying against you, the lab's testifying against you, and the state is prosecuting you. How are you going to defend yourself against that? You see, this is my point. Our system has become so corrupt and so unjust. Do you have any faith left in government at this point at all? I don't. I frankly, if Trump wasn't in the White House, I would have already given up on everything having to do with government. It's just the corruption and the dishonesty and the fraud is so deep, so many layers deep, it's unreal. Every agency of the government, the FBI, the EPA, the CDC, the FDA, so corrupt. And to even lose faith in police and to lose faith in the science labs because they're engaged in so much fraud. There was another lab in Boston where I think they had to overturn, thousands of cases, I read. Thousands of cases because that lab technician totally fabricated test results for 10 years or something like that, a decade or more. This is what's happening in America. And so people ask me, it's like, oh, you should believe, you should trust the police, you should trust the FBI, you should trust this lab. I don't trust any of them anymore. I run a lab, and I wouldn't trust a lab result unless I did it myself, frankly. Or one of my trained technicians that I oversee did it. If it doesn't come out of my lab, I don't really trust it anymore. Because I've seen too many examples of all this fraud and collusion and junk science. And I've seen so many examples now of law enforcement conspiring against innocent people like they were trying to do to Dr. Suzanne Humphries. And, if we hadn't worked to try to get those case numbers, who knows where that case could have gone. They could have arrested her. And they could have used that letter as evidence to arrest her, to say, oh, you're the only one who had these case numbers, so you must be the death threat person, which means you filed a false report with the FBI, which means you lied to the government. Oh, that's a felony. They sent, what's her name, that homemaker, to jail for lying to the government, right? Martha Stewart, that's her name. How did they indict General Michael Flynn? Lying to the government. If you make a false report to the FBI, that's lying to the government. You can go to jail. So they could have entrapped her in that just by saying, oh, you must have sent this because nobody else has the case numbers. Even though, as I have proven, it turns out you can just email the Austin police and just get the case number. Now, I don't think anybody's going to cover this in the national media, by the way, the legacy fake news media, because they don't want to expose all this. But if they do want to cover it, I've got all the proof. I've got the name and the badge number of the sergeant inside the Austin PD who gave us the case number. And it matched the case number that we were given. Well, it matched the case number. See, Suzanne Humphries didn't give us the case number. We acquired it from the Austin PD, and then I sent that to Suzanne Humphries to say, is this the correct case number? And she said, yes, I confirmed that's the correct case number. So we didn't even know the case number in advance. That's what's even more compelling about all this. There's no way I could have known the case number unless the Austin PD gave it to me, which they did. And they can't cover it up because we have the proof. So just think about all this. Think about the levels of the lies that you're being told by the police or the FBI or the vaccine industry or the CDC. Just think about how any person who tries to blow the whistle is targeted and victimized and sometimes prosecuted or blamed. And think about what Trump is going through, because what I just described with Dr. Humphries, that's nothing compared to what Donald Trump goes through every day. The entire deep state trying to destroy him, destroy his reputation, destroy his presidency, destroy his life and his family and his businesses every day. So thank God that we have someone named Donald Trump who's willing to fight against the deep state and fight for this country, because any lesser person would have already rolled over and given in, surrendered. Excuse me. But Donald Trump didn't give in. He didn't surrender. He's in the fight. And I have an inkling, I have a small little portion of a picture of what he's up against, and it is horrific. It is a monster. And yet he's going to battle with that monster every day. And he's, in many ways, winning. So be thankful that we have someone like Trump helping to defend this country. You can read more at Trump.news about Donald Trump, or you can read more from my website, naturalnews.com. My name is Mike Adams, of course, the Health Ranger. Let me give you a couple other things. Check out the Counterthink shows at counterthink.com. And then I'm also launching my new Real Video website, real.video, which is the alternative to YouTube. And it's launching this July 4th. And it is a free speech platform for people who are being censored by YouTube. So check it out, sign up, request a content channel, help defend free speech, help exercise free speech, and let the truth be told about the FBI, about vaccines, about natural medicine, about everything. Corruption, the deep state, you name it. Let the truth be told at real.video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Take care.
Learn more at healthrangerreport.com.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.